there is a game that is coming out tomorrow. Or I say coming out tomorrow. It's coming out on beta tomorrow. Actually, by the time this is cut up, probably already out. But it is a game that I am interested in, Chrono Odyssey. I'm being told it's New World, but better, sexier, and just better. I don't know. I'm just being told it's better. This video I want to watch here right now from Canon. After 70 hours, my full honest review.
Today, I get to finally share my full review on Chrono Odyssey. No sugarcoating, just an honest, direct review of the game. We're going to be covering everything the game has to offer, including my personal thoughts and opinions, of course. But before we begin, real quick, be sure to follow me on Twitch. I'm streaming almost every single day. If I get keys for the beta test, I will be giving them out via Twitch, so definitely come stop by. Now, before we begin, this review, as well as every other review that's being published this week, will be based off of an older beta build. This build is a very similar build to what we tested back in February and will be pretty much the same build you guys get to test on the 20th of this month. I know for a fact that there are some significant things based on our feedback that have already changed but will not be seen. Fortunately, however, not allowed to say what those changes are. So despite finally being able to reveal almost everything, there are still some things that I can't talk about. This review is going to be strictly based off of the build we will be seeing this month. Some of my criticisms in this very video have already been addressed. I want to be very upfront here. In this video, I'm going to be very honest, calling out the good and the bad as directly as I can. I want everyone to know that this is a game that I'm super excited about and I see a lot of potential in. We'll be going over my honest thoughts at the end of the video here, but I genuinely want to see this game succeed, and I think there's a real chance it could. But the only way it gets there is if we give real feedback, which includes calling out the issues. Not just in this video, but generally speaking. Now, with that out the way, some context. Kakao invited a select number of content creators to check out, review their game, and share their honest thoughts. We had just over 2 days to play this time around, and I believe I had around 30 hours this testing phase according to Steam, with another nearly 40 hours or so in the previous test, giving me roughly around 70-ish hours of total playtime now. This build allowed us to experience the first 15 to 25 levels worth of content, so just the early game. Let's begin with what Chrono Odyssey is. Chrono is an action combat dark fantasy open world MMORPG that leans towards a sandbox. We'll be talking about the content that's in Chrono in more detail later in the video. This is an MMO with a more PvE focus, but will include non-forced PvP as well. One of the biggest distinguishing factors for Chrono is that it has a more Souls-like feel to it, to the point where trailers make it seem more like a single-player action RPG rather than an MMO. But make no mistake, this is a full-fledged MMO. It really is the closest thing to what a Souls-like game would be if it were an...
Looks a little choppy. So choppy. Yeah, I was noticed that too. Some of the boss fights look really choppy. I don't know if this is just an older build, as he just disclosed.
MMO. And you really see this and feel this when it comes to the combat of movement. By the way, when it comes to that movement, I personally feel like the inertia is a bit high, and I see it feeling quote-unquote heavy for a lot of people, especially when jumping. Forward momentum is pretty annoying to deal with. Other than this, in a general sense, I feel like they did a pretty good job delivering us an actual Souls-like MMO that's an MMO.
You mean like
first.
Remnant vibes?
Now, with all that general stuff out the way, let's get into more of the details, starting with the graphics and the look of the game. The first thing that stood out for everyone was obviously the graphics. Run on Unreal Engine 5, Chrono delivers very impressive graphical fidelity. There are just some really impressive scenes and looks, but as amazing as the character models and world look, there are some clear deficiencies in this department in the live game. For example, the lighting needs to be worked on. When the sun is out, the zones look amazing, but then look significantly worse during certain weather patterns or times of the day. There are also some areas that are just way too dark or way too saturated with smog or lights. Character faces as well. They look pretty good at certain times of the day.
Damn, what?
And angles, but at other times they look completely different in a bad way to what you created in the character creation. You can see an example here.
Holy
The
good.
character looks completely different in the character sheet compared to the actual in-game. While we're on the subject of character looks, I also feel the customization when it comes to the characters actually lacks quite a bit. At first glance, the models look great and there seems to be a ton of options for adjustments, but it just never really felt like we were able to make exactly what we wanted to. What I'm saying is that in some games, you can literally recreate a celebrity, for example. In Chrono, it's not really possible to do that. Now, with that said, you are able to make some crazy abominations. Expect to see characters like...
Dude, look at the fucking lats on that guy. Hold up.
Do that. Now, with that said, you are able to make some crazy abominations. Expect to see characters like this in your game for sure. I also want to mention that there is no gender lock, nor do certain classes lock you into a certain type of class-themed look. I think this is probably the best part about the character customization. Actually, no, I take that back. The best part is definitely the sliders, the body sliders. These body sliders, yeah, definitely the biggest W. Let's talk about the structure of the game. When you begin,
it's not that we need it, okay? It's not that any of us will even max out the sliders. Who knows? Maybe we will, maybe we won't. It's just the fact that you give us the option. That's it. You give us the freedom to potentially choose it.
The game will lead you on a series of quests that guide you to your first Chrono Gate, which is your solo Souls-like boss fight at around level 4. This process only takes around 10 to 20 minutes tops, and most people will probably not be able to actually beat the boss unless you're using crossbow. Yes, it's actually quite challenging. Really good first boss encounter. This fight, by the way, really hooked me on the game because not only are you immediately put to the test, but you're also being exposed to a more meaningful combat experience early on, rather than just mindlessly spamming buttons on easy mobs. Despite barely having skills at this point, it still felt really fun. Whether or not you clear this Chrono Gate from this moment on, your progression is up to you. There is no MSQ other than to go to the next Chrono Gate and kill that boss. You'll have 3 more, by the way, a total of 4 in the beta test. It's up to you if you want to take on these bosses with no gear at low level, or if you want to gear up and then come back to it. After beating or leaving the first Chrono Gate, you'll now focus on leveling up your weapon masteries and gearing up to get stronger. This can be done in a multitude of ways, and the game encourages you to choose the content or progression path that's more fun for you. There is no one single way to do this, so let's go over your options. You have your side quests throughout different areas that will give you experience and rewards, such as gear and gold. You have dynamic subjugation zone quests that pop up in certain areas that also do the same. You have bounties, which are one-time PvE kill hunt quests that will have you hunt down a special named mob. These reward you with big experience along with a bounty currency you can use to purchase limited items and gear. You can also choose to life skill, go out in the world, gather materials directly, then craft everything. Gathering, by the way, also grants you experience. You can even just run straight to the NPC that gives you a quest to get your mount if you want that out the game. There is a big emphasis on freedom and exploration in Chrono Odyssey, and what you'll learn at this stage is that no matter where you go or what you do, you're going to run into something you can do or is worth doing. For example,
good.
After the Chrono Gate, I went to get my mount. On my way, I ran into a ton of materials that I could harvest to craft my next set of gear when I got back to town. I cleared some dynamic zone quests along the way, giving me some extra experience and loot. Discovered some field boss locations.
Dude, some of the gameplay reminds me, what is the game? Dragon's Dogma. Dude, something like that, especially like the dual blade and stuff. They remind you of Dragon's Dogma. This is an outdated beta version in the video chat. Oh, yeah. So some of that, what it was saying is like some of the things that are janky, hopefully be corrected. The beta's tomorrow, by the way. By the time this cut goes live, it's probably already going to be out. I personally absolutely love New World. It has such an amazing tone and vibe. Yeah. I don't know what it is about MMORPGs, guys. They just fondle the balls just right. Unfortunately for me, I just haven't found one that I'm like willing to give my life to. New World, kind of. We got to end game. We did everything that could possibly be done. But then after that, it was pretty much just like, all right, what do we do? We just wage war. I mean, that was fun for a day. I mean, it's actually fun for a couple weeks. But the point is like they were just so laggy.
And solo dungeon locations along the way, all of this giving me meaningful progression and on the way to my main objective that I chose for myself. In this case, getting them out. This was hands down the biggest draw for me personally in Chrono Odyssey, and is the reason why I believe that this game has one of the best canvases for an MMO I've seen in recent years. Whether you're solo or in a party, expect to actually go on an adventure when you leave town. There are a lot of random things in the world you'll come across, making every zone worth having a look, or even a second look. It may be a zone you discover having an abundance of specific tier 2 resources, or a zone that can spawn a hidden boss. Here we discovered when you kill 3 or 4, can't remember exactly, specific mobs, it spawns a hidden elite boss. Things could certainly be different at the end game. When I asked the producer directly about whether or not this freedom would remain at the end game, he did confirm that this is what is intended, rather than the being another daily homework game. What PvE and PvP content can we expect with Chrono? When it comes to PvE, expect anywhere from 3-player dungeons to 5-player dungeons, all the way to 10-player raids. These dungeons will reward you with the usual loot and experience. The only group dungeons we've been able to do are the 3-man dungeons, which felt pretty decent for the first introductory group dungeon. Loot wasn't bad, wasn't crazy. Unfortunately, in the most recent test, the second half of the dungeon, including the final boss, was locked out. I did get to experience the dungeon in full in the previous test, but can't comment on it considering this version is the only one we can talk about right now.
So is the weapon system similar to like New World? Notice he's got two weapons there that you could tab back and forth. Was a crossbow and I guess sword. So we have the ability to have 2 weapons, and then you could spec out the skill trees for either. Yes, I like that. I'm actually a big fan of that, especially if the skill trees. I mean, hopefully the skill trees are like extremely dense, but if if there is like limitations on that, having the ability to just pair weapons together. And I'm assuming there's no locks on that either. Like I'm assuming there's not like you can only do crossbow and sword instead of like crossbow and fucking hammer. It's not like New World. Each class only has 3 choices. Oh no shit. All right. Look, I'm gonna say this. If that's the case, it's got to have super dense skill trees. Yeah, if you can only use just the 3, it's got to be dense. My opinion. That's my opinion. If you're not gonna have the freedom to swap it between all the characters, which is fine. If that's like how the game is supposed to play. Okay, but it's gotta. I feel like the tree's gotta be super dense.
There's also other solo or smaller instance content, such as Trials, which is a big gauntlet-like solo dungeon where you'll go through multiple rooms to ultimately fight the final boss.
Oh, good.
I should add that there is a currency attached to the Trials, specifically allowing you to purchase additional goods as rewards. These goods ranging from permanent stat potions to gear itself. I should mention, though, these Trials are limited, seeing as you need keys to enter. And if you die at any point, you exit the dungeon and miss out on whatever else was ahead of you. I know I mentioned that I wasn't going to bring up what specific things have been changed or addressed in the latest build, but the Trials is one of them. You can see a pretty clear difference in the newer updated version in the official videos Chrono put out compared to what we have and what we will experience in our beta. Next, you have time portals that are little quick, easy instance dungeons that I wouldn't really call a real dungeon. Soloable, by the way. To enter these, you'll also need a specific key, which generally drops from bosses or elites throughout the world. These provide you with unique loot, like gems you can socket into your gear, which upgrades your skill levels. Don't expect a stellar experience when it comes to the time portals, at least early stages of the game, because they're pretty brain dead. A going through the motions like instance.
Yeah.
You'll also have solo dungeons that are labeled as
a lot of solo content,
which is usually a mini game puzzle-like instance with a boss at the end. These are absolutely worth doing, considering you get permanent stat upgrades or points on top of the experience. These solo dungeons, in my opinion, are pretty lackluster when it comes to the overall experience. If I'm going to be honest, they feel a bit bland. They feel jank, especially with the current inertia with the player movements. Also, some of the mechanics with the arrows shooting from the statues are just kind of dumb. literally can't even dodge them. Right now, these solo labyrinth dungeons are just things you do because you have to. They definitely need work.
Damn, he's getting
you're
tagged.
watching it right now, and yeah, exactly. Aside from the instance stuff, you also have open world encounters with field bosses or world bosses you can group up for. These bosses will, of course, have a wide range of difficulty, some being pretty easy while others being hard. This boss, for example, was an insanely difficult one for our
Man, look at
size
that
and our
health.
gear, but it was actually really fun because of how challenging it was. I was expecting the world boss, field boss content to be kind of brain dead content like most world bosses are in MMOs. But these were surprisingly fun. I think mainly because of the punishment you take when you get hit, and the combat just being a pretty fun experience. Of course, once you out-level these bosses, they'll become a joke, but the on-level ones, surprisingly fun. PvP-wise, the only thing available right now are 1v1 duels and the ability to flag for PvP. 1v1 duels are really scuffed at the moment, mainly because when starting the duel, a pillar spawns in the middle that has collision and is able to break line of sight. The dueling area is also very, very small. You don't recover HP after completing the fight, and you have to wait 60 seconds between finishing duels. All just really bad. When it comes to flagging, players have the option to flag up for PvP in town and venture out and combat anyone else that
What's
is
the pros?
flagged
What's the
for
pros?
PvP. The problem with this system, aside from the fact that no one actually flags because there is no current incentive to do so, is that you can't even party up with friends to do this.
Oh,
It's
you gotta be solo?
You versus everyone. The current infrastructure of PvP severely lacks, but the real content is expected to...
So I like new rules take on it. What was the XP boost? If you flag for PvP, you get, what was it? Was it like 10% more XP? Flagging for PvP was actually good if you were grinding because you got that extra bit of PvP. I thought that was a fantastic incentive for people to actually flag. And it also made every newbie out there flag for PvP, which meant if you wanted to early on in New World, you could farm all of the areas where new players were. Oh yeah, you got 10% XP and loot luck? Brother, people be trying to finish the fishing quests and you could just sit there and just tee off on noobs over and over. Eventually they flagged off, but you know, for like, I don't know, a day, it was fun as fuck.
Current infrastructure of PvP severely lacks, but the real content is expected to come with the full launch of the game, primarily in the form of open world PvP conflict zones in Eden, a PvEVP zone that has real rewards attached to it. The devs also said they could easily implement instance-based PvP like 3v3 or 5v5 arenas and would monitor feedback given in the upcoming beta test. So if you want those things implemented, be sure to provide that feedback. Other than the actual content, you're probably wondering what PvP itself feels like. Well, there definitely seems to be some stuff that's just broken, some stuff that seems underwhelming, certainly a good amount of scuffery, but honestly, it's kind of fun. We flagged up and headed out in the world to do some fights, and all in all, most of us had a lot of fun, mainly because of the combat. CCs don't lock you into place for 9 years, leading you to get one shot. They're important, but also short. Whether you're ranged or melee, you have to actually land your abilities.
And range class is so strong in PvP.
Exactly that. You can completely negate an incoming CC or skill by blocking or dodging.
Oh, okay.
Combat may not have been BDO ninja levels of speed, but it definitely didn't feel slow. Target lock is available, but honestly, not reliable at all. It's bad. Terrible for range, and certainly won't be used by good melee players. My group and I universally feel like there is some actual potential with the PvP if they can balance it out, clean it up, and make some good content around it. Speaking of target lock, let's talk about the combat.
Let me just back up here. I know people don't necessarily play MMORPGs for, I guess they don't play it for PvP, but coming from RuneScape, I love PvP. I love going to the wildy. I love the high stakes of it. You die, you lose your shit. You can take someone else's shit. You know what I mean? It's just there's something beautiful about when someone's hard work is taken away from them in a matter of seconds. You know what I'm saying? Like, man. And look, even on the receiving end, hot damn. You know what I mean? But so like the thing in RuneScape, what an experience. You know what I mean? You don't understand until you've killed someone. You've taken their shit and then they DM'd you begging for their items. And they're like, please, can I just have my whip back? You could keep everything else. Keep the armor. Keep the pots. Keep everything else. Just please, can I just have my fucking whip back? And then look. And then you have an option. You could give it back, or you could do what every RuneScape player always did. All right, buddy. Sure, I'll give it back. Come on out here. I'm at level 15 Wildy. Come on. And then you kill him again. Except this time, you kill him with his own weapon. Look. The amount of disrespect, brother. The amount of disrespect when you kill someone, take their shit, and then kill them with their own shit. Malice, you can't replace it. There's no better feeling in the world. The problem is most MMORPGs just don't do this anymore. You know what I mean? I don't know of any other MMORPG that does that anymore. Because it's toxic? Maybe. But I do like PvP in MMORPGs though. Even if it's jank. Even if it's really not that good. Like I don't think Final Fantasy XIV's PvP was not good, but I played it. You know what I mean?
The overall foundation of the combat is action combat that leans Souls-like. This means iframe dodge rolls that consume stamina and can cancel you out of your attacks, basic attacks that are more meaningful, locked-in attack animations, taking hits being actually more punishing, not allowing players to just mindlessly greet attacks. For the record, you have 4 abilities on your hotbar for each weapon, totaling to 8. You have a basic attack LMB, left mouse button, special attack or ability, depending on your weapon, on your RMB, right mouse button, your Chronotector skill, which you can look at more as an alt, and up to 4 active mastery skills, only 1 being available during the beta, 15 total abilities you can press. While the combat is certainly on the slower side, it's not actually that slow. Sure, you're locked into animations, but the abilities themselves don't feel overly heavy and clunky as some Souls-like games do. I actually really like the combat personally, to the point where I'd say it's one of my favorite parts of the game. It's slow enough for anyone to quote-unquote get in the beginning, but there is definitely a higher skill ceiling for those who really want to maximize their efficiency, and the more you do that, the more engaging the combat becomes. Sure, you can just spam all your abilities and basic attack and deal damage, have fun, but actually trying to execute a proper rotation while fighting will be a much bigger challenge. Not to mention, you literally have headshot modifiers if you're playing crossbow or bow, adding an aim element to it. Weapon swapping is a big point of discussion when it comes to combat. I'm not the biggest fan of weapon swapping myself, but Chrono does a pretty good job with it, and it's actually growing on me as a result. For what it is, it's done pretty well. The transition between swapping is very smooth and quick, and the more comfortable you are, the better you'll get, and the more you'll notice yourself swapping back and forth. All weapon combinations have benefits and buffs on swap, encouraging players to go back and forth. The swap itself is kind of an ability sometimes in and of itself. For example, the swap could proc an effect, giving you back a good amount of your resource, allowing you to use more skills. Most weapon effects also are tied to the weapon in your hand, meaning a special passive you may get from your twin axes, for example, won't be applied when you swap to your chain blades. Not all, though. There are some abilities and buffs that do persist. As mentioned in the PvP section, there is a target lock feature, but honestly, I found it to be more of an inconvenience than anything. If you aim your character or mouse, you'll land your hits. Simple as that. The target lock is definitely better in PvE, but even then, with how big a lot of these monsters are, the way the camera pans while in target lock, the camera will auto zoom in a lot of the times, making it annoying to see. And personally, I just turn this feature off 99% of the time.
Wow. Okay.
Overall, I personally did enjoy the combat, and I feel like a big part of that comes from the class design, which is the next section. Classes. This is going to be a relatively short section because one of my upcoming videos is going to be a full class breakdown video. With that said, there are 6 classes in Chrono Odyssey, each having access to 3 weapons. Only 3 of these classes will be available in the upcoming beta test: Swordsman, Ranger, and Berserker. Paladin, Assassin, and Sorcerer are the other classes which I was able to play for a day in the first beta test, but I can't share anything due to the fact that it wasn't made available for this current version. Each of these three classes, the Swordsman, Ranger, and Berserker, are quite different from one another, and I feel like Chrono has done a pretty good job with the basic identity of these classes. Each class resonated with people, and there aren't any that just felt garbage to everyone. I've personally played them all, and I originally thought it was a Swordsman angle for me, but after trying Berserker, I'm kind of sold on Berserker now. I also thought, by the way, I could be a Ranger maid for a little while when I was trying Ranger. Of these three classes, though, I probably have to say that Berserker was it for me personally. The Chain Blades is just really sick, and the Twin Axes also just has
It does look sick.
It just has a pretty solid kit. Let's talk about the monetization next. The TLDR is that Chrono Studios has announced that they will never have any pay-to-win elements, and they will only monetize cosmetics and a battle pass. However, in another interview, they stated that they could also monetize quality of life convenience goods, sparking some backlash due to the inconsistencies. The only thing I can speak to is what I've been told personally and what I've experienced off camera in person. And that's that this team seems very much against pay to win and even continue to double down on their anti-pay to win stance off camera. And yes, I asked about the specific loopholes, all of which they said no to. They all genuinely seemed excited about being the first non-pay to win Korean MMO. Because I'm a glass is half full kind of guy, and because of the IRL interaction I had with them, and there were people of power present, I'm inclined to believe them. Would I bet my life savings on it? Of course not. But it doesn't matter whether we believe them or not. It's on them to prove it to us. But the convenience items are another story. If they do add in convenience items, I feel they should have for sure disclosed that in my interview. But again, regardless, we're all
Convenience items be like XP booster, teleport stones, a bag. Maybe, I don't know if there's something for more bag space. Obviously things that would aid you, right? If it's Korean, it's pay to win. We watched this entire interview though, and that's why he's saying that exactly like in the interview, they said that they're not doing any pay to win stuff, but we'll see. I also don't know what the upfront cost for this game is supposed to be.
all going to find out eventually. And if they do end up selling some convenience items like character slots or anything consistent with Path of Exile, I don't really give a shit. It's still a massive W in my eyes. Okay, so my overall honest thoughts on the game. As mentioned before, I love the canvas of the game. I love the combat, classes feel great. Game is supposed to not have pay to win. Thematically, it's right up my alley. How can I not be excited about this game? However, there are two massive concerns I have with this game, assuming monetization is of course what they claim it to be. The first being how good the endgame loop will be. It's already been stated that this game isn't going to be one that has some insane grind and crazy chase items. From a progression standpoint, I really hope they have enough build variety to keep players engaged, chasing multiple sets of gear as the gear incentive to continue. Downside to not having a grindy game is that you have no vertical progression when you hit gear cap. The day-to-day activities have to feel good and fun to do. There needs to be purpose. The endgame raids have to be peak quality content. The only thing we know is how it feels in the early game, and that is just never the full picture. The end game is significantly more important.
Yep.
The second massive concern are the bugs. How will the game performance be? How bug-ridden will this game be? In its current state, the game has a lot of issues when it comes to the bugs. There's just way too many small bugs that diminish the polish of the game. Most of these aren't even game-breaking, just a lot of small, annoying ones. For example, my character's hair randomly disappearing, not being able to interact with things when I'm trying to harvest, my character having to walk into position to harvest or interact with something for whatever reason, party/raid systems bugging out, even being pulled into the Void Gate, which is a solo instance my friend is doing because we're in party. Somehow that happened. The list goes on. None of these things are game killers per se, but when there's enough of them around, it certainly scuffs the experience quite a bit. If I had to describe what Chrono Odyssey feels like right now, I would say that it feels like a wannabe AAA game developed by an indie studio that does actually have the chance to be a AAA game, but currently lacks the polish of being one. If this was an alpha or early beta, I'd say it's looking pretty good. If this is what we're going into launch with, then honestly, we're in some serious trouble. I love how receptive the Chrono team is with feedback. I love the canvas. I think the potential is for sure there. But for now, that's all it is, potential. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's some serious potential, in my opinion. Like I said, there were a lot of things that they have already changed, which we can't talk about, but the version you all will be playing this month will be consistent with everything I've described in this video. And that's gonna pretty much do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, come follow me on Twitch. I'm going to be streaming a lot of Chrono Odyssey, and I will be giving away as many keys as I possibly can on Twitch if I get some keys. I'll see you guys in the next video.
Good video. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I want to be excited. I'm not gonna lie. Game kind of looks, just based on some of the gameplay we're shown here, even footage that wasn't like quote unquote laggy or high ping or whatever, looks a little jank. I don't like that the targeting system, it just doesn't seem to work well. You know, it seems like it doesn't track well. I don't know. Y'all tell me what y'all think about like the targeting system. Like, I feel like the targeting system should be better. And then also, like, doesn't seem like any defined end game has been disclosed yet. And he's like had like deep discussions with the developers, had that entire interview. We watched that entire interview. It was fantastic, by the way. However, like, this is exactly what happened to New World. New World rolled out. They had no defined end game. And what did we do? We quit. We left. Imagine if Destiny 1 had rolled out and never brought us Vaulted Glass. Most of you probably would have quit. I would have quit. I was actually about to quit. I was about to be like, all right, I guess I'm going to go play, I'll go back to Final Fantasy 14 again. But then Vaulted Glass rolled out. And then that's when it was like, oh, it's one of those kind of games. Now, what he's talking about is like defined loot. What is some super defining loot? You know, exotics, uniques, mythic, whatever. Maybe it's a beta thing that I haven't disclosed that, but we'll see. I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to emphasize how important that is. In-game is PvVP in the Eden Zone. That's going to be interesting, man. That's going to be interesting. Maybe Bungie got it right. Maybe Gambit is, in fact, what everyone wants. Have you guys seen any, like, exotic level or legendary level loot? Loot is not the chase, if I understand it correctly. What the fuck is the chase? By the way, there was nothing mentioned about player-owned houses. You gotta have gear depth. It's not a looter-shooter cross. No shit. MMORPGs have loot too. Are you guys... what the fuck is wrong with y'all? Huh? Loot exists inside of MMORPGs. If anything, they're the father of looter shooters. They're just not shooting. You're not shooting in MMORPG. Well, maybe some of the weapons you are. The question that I have for this game, will it be better than the launch of New World? New World was hype. I like the different solo activities. That looks good. But New World had a good, like, I like the skills in New World. Can't remember exactly, like, if I definitely didn't like the watermark system at the end, where it was just like you had these incremental bumps in gear. It was hype for all 12 of y'all. Oh, Drop Top, you know New World held the record for highest concurrent viewership on Steam for an MMORPG, right? The highest concurrent viewership for an MMORPG. New World held the record, and I think it still holds the record. It had 972,000 concurrent players. Put that in perspective, the highest Bungie in Destiny has ever gotten on Steam is 300,000. Just on Steam alone. Now, since the game is launched on consoles, so who knows? The queue times are insane. They were insane. Yeah, if you fucking got kicked offline, you had to wait hours to get back in. Lost Ark at 1.3. Okay, so New World got dethroned. All right. I would go home, launch New World before anything else, just so I could play later that night. Yeah. They actually had to add an AFK queue. WoW is much higher. I think it's like 12 mil. I don't know what WoW's numbers ever got up to concurrent wise. I know. I mean, look. At one time, WoW was to MMORPGs what Fortnite is to battle royales. It was a generational defining game. And like, look, I'll even admit it as like a RuneScape player. It's like as a RuneScape player for years, we would be like, wow, we don't need WoW. Why play WoW when you got RuneScape? At the end of the day, WoW, it was a generational defining MMORPG. It was so defining. That's why everyone was trying to make the next MMORPG. Everybody was trying to pump out. We had so many MMORPGs that were coming out left and right. Some of them were actually kind of fun for a moment. But I've been like, dude, I remember there was like an MMORPG I played that had an auto walker. I shit you not. You click the quest, you would click at the top right end of your screen, and your character would auto walk all the way across the map to it. You could literally go take a shit. You can go fix a sandwich. You could literally click the quest, go fix your sandwich, come back. Your character would still be just walking toward the quest. The whole point of the game was like, it was like a super approachable MMORPG. That sounds great. You lazy just walk to the goddamn place. Back in my day, you got lost for 2.5 hours trying to make your way to the quest. And then eventually you found the person with the quest after clicking on every NPC in a town. And you died 3 times before.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.